Well, hello, everybody, and welcome. It's great to see so many folks in here today. The clerk, will you please call the roll?
Corliss.
Here.
Halliburton.
Here.
Morales.
Here.
Nah.
Here.
Dead.
Here.
Willett.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. The first item we have is a request for approval from council member minutes.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the minutes for the regular meeting and the work session for January 14th, 2025.
Second. Clerk?
Nash.
Yes.
Dead.
Yes.
Willett.
Yes.
Corliss.
Yes.
Halliburton.
Yes.
Morales.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
And next up, we have the consent agenda. Before I take a motion, I just want to point out two items. There are two grants related to housing and homelessness on the agenda tonight, both Resolution 3225, which provides funding to develop a program to support youth in our community that are experiencing homelessness. And Resolution 3525, which is a price grant that provides funding to protect and restore existing affordable housing, both the Sage Mobile Home Park as well as other initiatives that this council has put forward to meet the goals that we have of preserving homes in the city that are currently affordable. I bring these up particularly in light of the discussion that we had earlier this morning, that this remains the council's highest priority, is ensuring that we look and leave no stone unturned to an all of the above strategy to address both housing and homelessness in our city. These are on the agenda today, but yesterday, last night, and folks learned of it more this morning, the Trump administration ordered a freeze of federal grants and loans that put these partnerships and programs in jeopardy. And as we look to the work that we've done to meet community needs around affordability, it's taken partnership. And the federal government has always been a partner in these areas. And I'm hearing from many people throughout this community already about their concerns for future and current programs that are existing. But today it's real for Boise in these two grants on the agenda that align with our residents' values, the good work of the housing team, and the deep and meaningful partnerships we've developed with the nonprofit community as well as business community to house folks experiencing homelessness so we can prevent encampments and to do everything we can to increase the number of homes affordable Boise budgets, and in this case, to preserve homes in Boise already that are affordable Boise budgets.
Madam Mayor, if I could just speak to that as well. This administration has been great. This mayoral administration has been great in leaving no stone unturned when it comes to identifying resources that we can use to solve our housing crisis. We're in a period of uncertainty right now. A lot of you folks are getting your 1099s, your W-2s, and you're going to put those into TurboTax soon, and that federal tax bill is going to crank up. And it's my feeling that we deserve those tax dollars coming back to us. And we need those tax dollars that you are bearing to come back and provide the services that our community needs to keep us safe, to keep families whole. And Trump administration under the last Trump administration, there were a lot of good opportunities for partnerships. Our first emergency rental assistance program was under the Trump administration. And so I hope that this period of uncertainty around this grant funding can get resolved quickly so we can get back to a cooperative relationship with the federal government when it comes to meeting the needs and meeting the needs of our community and making sure that our tax dollars are coming back to the state of Idaho and the city of Boise.
I'll take a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second. We have a motion, a second. Clerk?
Nash.
Yes.
Dead.
Yes.
Willett.
No.
Corliss.
Yes.
Halliburton.
Yes.
Morales.
Yes.
5 in favor, 1 opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. We will now move into ordinances. We've got several on, it looks like second reading.
Madam Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that all ordinances on second reading be read by number and title only and filed for the third reading calendar.
Without objection.
ORD 2-25, an ordinance amending Boise City Code Title 9, Chapter 1, Article A, Building Code, updating accessibility requirements to align with the state, allowing for an additional extension period, updating non-compliance provisions, and providing an effective date. ORD 3-25, an ordinance amending Boise City Code Title 9, Chapter 1, Article B, 1 and 2 Family Dwelling Building Code, to create alignment with state code, creating an additional extension and amendment compliance provisions, and providing an effective date. ORD 4-25, an ordinance amending Boise City Code Title 9, Chapter 9, Energy Conservation Code, creation exemptions for certain accessory buildings, create further alignments with state code, allowing for certain visual inspections, approving a summary of the ordinance, and providing an effective date.
And now we have one on first, second, and third reading. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I move that all rules of the council interfering with the immediate consideration of ORD 5-25 be suspended, that the portions of Idaho Code 50-902 requiring an ordinance be read on 3 different days, twice by title and once in full be dispensed with, and that the record show that it has been read the third time in full.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Clerk?
Nash,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Willett,
Yes.
Corliss,
No.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales.
Yes.
5 in favor, 1 opposed. Motion carries. ORD 5-25, an ordinance amending Boise City Codes Title 3, Chapter 17, Sections 2 and 3, Title 5, Chapter 2, Section 10, and Title 7, Chapter 7, Article A, Section 6, to create a process to allow for the sale and service of liquor at special events within select city parks and recreation facilities, adopting a new Boise Code Title 7, Chapter 7, Article A, Section 13, entitled Sunset Provision for Special Events with Liquor in City Parks Pilot Program, thereby creating a 1-year pilot program and renumbering subsequent sections accordingly, reorganizing and amending portions of the code for clarity and consistency, approving a summary of the ordinance, providing for a waiver of the reading rules, and providing an effective date.
Madam Mayor, I move that ORD 5-25 be approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion?
Madam Mayor, I just want to acknowledge that this is a special event liquor license ordinance that we considered in December, and then we brought back again with amendments. Appreciate staff and the mayor's office for working with us on those amendments. There are 2 amendments that I intended to include but failed to and want to address. I think these would be within the purview of the Special Events Committee. But should this ordinance come back and this pilot be successful next year, these are amendments that I would likely consider and propose to this ordinance, assuming that I am back and we are back a year from now. In conversations with BPD and with special events community about what are the best run special events and who is doing this right and who could do it better, the feedback that we got was that making sure that servers are TIPS certified was a big component, as well as being able to work with established vendors that have long-term liquor licenses and not single-use licenses. So I would encourage the Special Events Committee to take a look at applications that come before it and making sure that we're pushing special event sponsors to adopt best practices that will lead to cooperative relationships with BPD and keep our community safe and being able to enjoy themselves responsibly. But with that, I would ask for your support on the ordinance.
Madam Mayor, just a couple quick things. One, I want to thank Council President Nash for coming up with a compromise for council and hearing everybody's thoughts on it. That's good leadership. Second, it's not appropriate for the ordinance, but I said during the last meeting that I think that we need to make sure that while this says sunset in January, that we begin conversations on it this year, preferably in October or November, so that we can make sure that we know the direction that we're going to be going by the time that we hit that sunset mark. If we hit that sunset mark and we haven't even begun the conversation yet, I think we may run into an issue. And so just asking staff to keep in mind that as this does sunset in January, we need to be having the conversation actually in 2025 to make sure that we are on track to give direction.
All right,
Madam
Claire?
Mayor?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Couple things. Thank you, President Ash, for working on this. I voted against this before, and I'm going to vote against it today. I think we've missed a colossal opportunity here. I would have preferred that our conversation focus on how we ensure that festivals stay in our community. They're an important part. It's what makes, communities very unique. But instead, we had a solution to festival profitability given to us, and not the real conversation, which should have been, how do we support these festivals? We missed an opportunity in that we didn't have a public hearing. We didn't hear from parks publicly. We didn't hear from fire and police publicly. And I don't think that's good governance. So I'll be voting no.
Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Willetts. I think likewise, I will not be supporting the ordinance today, but I do appreciate fellow council members for working on trying to tighten it up. When I think about our parks, I think about the importance for them to be welcoming to a wide variety of uses, and special events is a really big part of that. We enjoy our events so much here in Boise, and these are put on by really good people that have our community in mind to provide these opportunities. And it's important to consider that, there will be residents before, during, and after these events enjoying their parks. And even though they might be rocking for a festival already, introducing liquor increases the chance of overconsumption of alcohol, potentially leading to disruptive behavior, damage, or conflicts, which can undermine community expectations for how we treat our parks as spaces for all to enjoy. And while I trust these local organizations in particular immensely, humans are human. And there's a reason that we have to increase the preventative resources that we provide in our city to these events. And so I do want to specifically thank those that handle these events, that brought this ordinance before us and have expressed that they need more support, because they are making a sacrifice to hold these events in these parks, clearly. And by holding them in these spaces, they're such an important thread in the social fabric of our community. We want to retain that. So I do, like Councilmember Willetts, hope that we can find those ways to support them, to keep them, and we benefit from them greatly, not just the economic impacts, but more so as a community, that social fabric. So I just want to express that. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I could just respond to a couple of Councilmember Willetts's. The issues that you brought up, I think, are addressed in the ordinance. If you look at the text of the ordinance, we put in there that we expect, when this comes back to us again, to have that type of input that you had requested. So even if we didn't meet those expectations this time around, the language of the ordinance will reflect, it reflects those desires that you have for the next time around. So I want to make sure that we have all the input that we can to make a good, responsible decision for the city. I also want to talk about comments you made relative to keeping special events here. I've given a great deal of thought to liquor laws during my time in the state legislature. And one thing that a liquor lobbyist, no less, or an alcohol lobbyist shared with me is that you just need to always be careful about using alcohol as an economic development tool. So I want to be very clear that my motivation in this, and with the provisions that we put in there, including aid to retailers and marketing, which are state prohibitions, are consistent with those objectives. That I see this as meeting a demand in the community in a narrow way for these types of beverages. But I will just tell you that going forward, when we reconsider this or other proposals related to liquor, that I'm going to keep a very watchful eye that we are not necessarily treating alcohol as an economic development tool, but responding to a demand within the community to make sure that they can get the best out of these events. So just want to share that with you.
All right, Clerk?
Nash,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Willetts,
No.
Corliss,
No.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales.
No.
3 in favor, 3 opposed. Madam Mayor, please cast your vote.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Now we have a special presentation. And just as we move into special business, first we have the presentation from the Light My Fire Committee. It's always awesome to have you guys visit us. And then an appointment of our new Director of HR, Stacy Doty. Jen Ellis, I heard, was here, but I don't see Jen in the crowd. Is Jen online? Right, we have a reappointment. I really appreciate Jen's continued service. And then after that, we're going to be continuing. It's a continuation of Council President Nash's presentation of council priorities that was part of our work session prior to this, before then heading into executive session. And with that, come on up, folks. Welcome.
Madam Mayor, on. Yeah. Madam Mayor and members of City Council, it's an honor to have the Light My Fire Committee in front of you today. Just over 30 years ago, members of our Treasure Valley community witnessed a fire that resulted in a devastating loss to our local family. One of the firemen, one by one, firemen took out their wallets and provided cash to assist the family. When asked why by the individuals who witnessed this fire, they learned there was no organization or company to provide immediate assistance. Those community members who witnessed this selfless act from first responders decided they could make a difference, and Light My Fire was founded. Over the course of 30 years, $725,000 has been raised and donated back into the Treasure Valley. These funds have helped to support local burnout funds, fire education programs, and other worthy fire department initiatives. These donations aren't possible without the support of a loyal committee made up of volunteers from our local insurance industry, restoration contractors, fire department representatives, and dedicated community members. As we've all witnessed in recent weeks, educating and supporting our communities about the dangers of fire is vital to maintaining a healthy community. While it's an honor of mine to be speaking on behalf of Light My Fire, I would also like to invite the committee members present to stand and be recognized with Bob and Mary and myself. These are some of the individuals who have made Light My Fire a continued success year over year. After the gala in 2024, Light My Fire is pleased to announce that the funds being donated back into our communities is a total of $96,000. In addition to the annual donations that are made to the City of Boise and Meridian, a new grant initiative has also been established. This grant has allowed Light My Fire to expand our reach to outlying Idaho fire departments in an effort to grow our mission and educating our communities about fire's devastating effects. Donations will also be made to the Idaho First Responders Coalition, focused on first responder mental health, and the Renaissance High School, which is educating our next generation of first responders. At this time, I would like to have Maura Hay and Brian Skinner join us. On behalf of Light My Fire, it's an honor to present the Boise Fire Departments with checks totaling $34,500. It is our great privilege to help support your programs and their initiatives that make the Treasure Valley this great place we all call home. And on behalf of the Light My Fire Committee, we invite each of you to attend the 2025 Light My Fire Hot Havana Nights Gala that'll be hosted at the Riverside Hotel on February 21st. We encourage you to join us for an evening of fun, camaraderie as we continue our mission in raising awareness and supporting local Idaho programs that provide support and education in preventing fire's devastating outcome.
Well, thank you. Of course, for the invitation to the event, but truly for the impact that you've had over the years in supporting families in some of their saddest, darkest times. I think I've shared with you before that quite a while ago now, one of my husband's coworkers was a beneficiary of this support after they lost their home to fire. And just hearing through my husband his stories of the support that they received in such a tough time made it real and just reminded me how impactful this work that you do is for the community, but ultimately the impact that it has on individuals when they need more than ever at that moment to feel that they've been cared for in such tough times. So thank you for your continued support, your annual arrival here to provide this check to our great Boise firefighters and all that you do throughout the year here. And great to hear that you're going to be helping in other communities now too.
Madam Mayor, council meetings are so weird because they seem so formal. Can we just give them all a quick round of applause? Yeah. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to put these events on. It's a lot of work to do this year after year, and it's a lot of work to continue to evolve your organization. So it's really exciting to see that, and it's been fun. I think this is probably the 6th check I've seen you bring to council since I've been here. I hope that I'm in town for the event this year, but it does make a difference. And it's not something that you have to do. It's something that you choose to do because it matters. And I'm just always amazed and inspired by people who step up to try to figure out a way to make a difference and make change by doing that. So again, thank you for all of your effort, and thank you for being here, at least for the 6th time that I've seen, but certainly for years before that.
Madam Mayor, this is near and dear to my heart. My husband and I have attended this event for a number of years, and when we very first came to the Valley, it was our once a year date night. We got the babysitter, we dressed up, we stayed as long as possible. We had such a remarkable time, and I know how meaningful this is for people. And I just appreciate you doing it. Councilmember Halliburton mentioned these things don't happen unless people do them. And it really is the doers that make this happen. So thank you for being doers. Thank you for hosting incredible events where we can support our firefighters and also our families that are desperately in need when that happens. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I should ask, did you want to do a photo? There's lots of people here and you've got that big check. Did you have plans? Okay, great. We can do that. We can jump down now and do that so that you all can head on your way if you'd like.
Over here or? She's in charge. Let's everybody on this corner get like just a little bit closer. There you go. Thank you so much. Thank you.
And now I have for council the appointment of Stacy Doty as the director of our Human Resources Department, effective January 7th, 2025. I am so pleased to welcome Stacy to the city of Boise. Brings a depth and breadth of career experience and knowledge to the job. It's wonderful to see the HR department in the room today to welcome you to the team. I want to welcome you personally and just say it's great to have you here. And I feel like we were so lucky. Stacy's got lots of family here. She comes from 20 years at Schweitzer and in the HR space, wanted to be here close to family, decided to come. And then the job opened up and the timing couldn't have been better for us. I'm so excited to have you here. Welcome and thanks for choosing the city of Boise.
Madam Mayor, I ask unanimous consent for the appointment of Stacy Doty as Director of Human Resources effective January 27th, 2025. Do you want to do it?
I think we actually need a vote.
Okay.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor, I move for the appointment of Stacy Doty as Director of Human Resources effective January 27th,
Second.
2025.
We have a motion and second discussion.
Madam Mayor, I read through your wonderful application, and at first I was like, oh, this person hasn't been doing this for this long. But then I looked at the same organization year after year after year after year after year, and it's so cool to see somebody who hangs around an organization and contributes in so many ways. I want to thank all of our HR team for being here. I sort of have I'm always impressed with anybody who has continued to do HR after 2020. It was such a challenging time. Doesn't matter if you're at the city or Boise or whatever organization that you worked at, just like absolutely challenging. And our city of Boise staff has done a really, really great job at getting through that, rebuilding, creating a really strong organization. We've got a great team down there. And it's an amazing skill set that a lot of people don't have. I'm fascinated by people who can do HR because it really does take a special person to be able to do it. And we've got a great team, and Stacey, you're inheriting a great team as well. So thank you for being part of this organization and part of this team.
Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I just wanted to make a comment. It was a pleasure to be council, I guess, liaison to this search. Really want to, first of all, thank all of the staff that put together a really good search for this director position. But it was such a pleasure to meet with Stacy. I was super excited about the vigor that she brought for working for an organization like ours. And it kind of makes sense when you look at the organization she comes from, where, employee owned, in charge of helping support critical infrastructure throughout the world. And just think about the kind of organization that we have here too, where we really are one team supporting a lot of really critical needs here, and just super excited about the different perspectives she brings. But she certainly also brought a knowledge of some of those things, the exciting new opportunities that will present her here. So welcome to the team, and congratulations.
All right. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Nash,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Willetts,
Yes.
Corliss,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Well, congratulations, Stacy. You are more than welcome to come up and share a few words if you'd like. And while you're doing that, I want to thank Carrie Hall for stepping in as interim director of HR the last, I want to say a couple months, but I feel like time flies. Thank you for heeding the call, stepping up and supporting this team as we look for the right person to lead the team into the future. Really appreciate it. Stacy, welcome and congratulations.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. First, I want to just say thank you very much for the opportunity. This was a big move and a big change. And when I moved down to Boise just a little over a month ago, I've said time and time again, it's felt very welcoming. Every aspect of this has felt very welcoming. I think the timing of the opportunity was kind of heaven sent for me. I wanted to do something very meaningful for my next adventure. And this to me is very meaningful, to give back to a community, to serve the community of Boise. And I couldn't be more excited about the team. I've just spent a few days with them so far, but they seem amazing. And I am very excited to partner and to contribute to the city of Boise. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, and now we have the reappointment of Jen Ellis to the Public Works Commission. Jen has served, as you can see already, because she's being reappointed. Deeply appreciate her service, the time and attention and passion she has for the issues that Public Works oversees, and I'm so glad she was willing to do this again.
Madam Mayor, I ask unanimous consent for the reappointment of Jen Ellis to the Public Works Commission for a 4-year term ending February 1st, 2029.
Without objection. Thank you, Jen. All right, we'll go ahead and continue with your presentation. Yes, folks, you're welcome to stay, but you're also welcome to head on with your lunch and your day. Take care, everybody.
I think this is because I didn't have an HR slide, so apologies to HR and IT. You're just doing such a great job. We have no priorities related to you. All righty. Planning and development. modern zoning code. Three of us on council were here when we passed that, and in that motion, we made a pledge to revisit it within a year. I think we've had a number of conversations on the dais about how we haven't had enough information to make the most material changes to the modern zoning code, but we would like to meet that public expectation of revisiting it, even if the first time we revisited it, it's just fixing typos and that kind of thing. I will say we would, even if the first time we revisit this, we don't make like serious substantive changes or overhaul it in any particular way, we would like to foster a culture of continuous improvement when it comes to the modern zoning code and our goals around it. I also want to speak to how we might accomplish that. When I think if you harken back to the decision that we had a couple weeks ago where on appeal, an applicant claimed that there was a oversight in the modern zoning code. We had our planner demonstrate to us a couple designs that may have legally worked within that configuration. I think there is more work that we can do, and I haven't met with, admittedly, I have not met with Sean Wilson to get a handle on what they're actively doing today in PDS to provide this type of customer service. But when Tim Keene was here, there was a consideration being tossed around about adding additional urban designers on staff. I believe we have one today, but the consideration was maybe 2 to 4 urban designers. I would be curious how our current director would see those potential hires as helping with the customer service that we deliver around the modern zoning code. So if you could imagine a proposal like the one we considered a couple weeks ago being brought to a planner applying the code as we have written, which there's no carve out for that particular type of development. But imagine an urban designer getting involved earlier in that process to intervene, to show, if you remember the slides that Jessie had before us where she had kind of graphically designed potential configurations that might work. Imagine an urban designer getting involved early in that process and pushing the developer towards something that can, having the expertise to push the developer towards something that can meet their own private needs as well as the needs of the modern zoning code. So I say that because I would warn council against every time we have an application that does not fit neatly into the modern zoning code of us having a knee-jerk reaction of going back to something how it used to be. We've had a number of applications on the legacy zoning code over the last 2 years that are just like, hey, this is illegal and allowed, but it would be allowed under the modern zoning code. What I'm worried about is a number of applications like, this was totally legal 2 years ago, can't you just fix it for us? I think there are opportunities for us to tweak the zoning code and make sure it's meeting our needs, make sure the incentives that we've done are right. I mentioned it earlier, but Councilmember Stead and I had met with a consultant that the city had hired to make sure that the incentives that we put in there are good. So it's clear to me that the mayor is committed to a culture of continuous improvement around this. And I just want to echo that council is as well. But I've had a number of council members, including Councilmember Halliburton and Willits, who in recent weeks have said we really need to follow through on that promise that we had in the original motion to consider that within a year. We've left that window, so we would just ask that we publicly commit to a timeline when we're going to do that. One of the best things about the modern zoning code process is that there was a very clear and transparent public process that went into that, where we were committing to taking it up 2 or 3 years in advance. And I thought I was not even remotely on council at that point, and was very impressed that staff was able to stick to those timelines when they did. And I think we would like to adopt a similar approach here, both with the modern zoning code and with a design review process and historic preservation review process. We're asking a lot of our PDS staff right now when it comes to these things. I think some of us were hoping that once we got through the modern zoning code that the heavy lift would be over. But implementation of the modern zoning code plus looking at other review processes, we're asking a whole lot of them. So if we had a better idea of what timelines PDS was willing to publicly commit to when it came to revisiting the modern zoning code, performing the design review and the historic survey, it would help us all hold each other accountable and making sure that we're working towards getting those things done, but also understanding the staffing needs and challenges that we might have in PTS to meet council's and the public's expectations and continue to provide that quality customer service, because providing that quality customer service is going to be what I think there's strong public support for what we've done, and I want to make sure that the development community and the public can continue to believe in that, so that our intent and goals around the modern zoning code are meeting that. Councilmember Stead, did you have comments on design review, historic preservation?
Actually,
Yeah.
President Nash, before we go to those others,
Yeah.
I'd like to talk a little bit about the modern zoning code.
Yeah.
That was a Herculean effort to change something that had been there since black and white television. And it's not lost on me on how much work the city did, how much outreach. And we have had a few things that have come up that were not expected. And I would hope that we would have the humility to look beyond typos to other things that we know are issues. And I would also request that as part of this review, we actually reach out to folks who are using the zoning code, whether they be, everyday constituents that are trying to get a remodel permit or they're developers. I think we need that user experience directly in how we make these decisions.
So, Councilmember Wells, I've thought a lot about what you're saying here, and I want to be careful that we're not sending mixed messages to the mayor on this. I think the reason that we've been a little slower is because we're waiting for that information to come so that we don't do one thing now, but we have 10 requests a year from now. And, but at the same time, we're like, we really want to do it right now. So it would be my preference that we do what we committed to, which is revisit it with the information that we have now, even if there aren't substantive changes, but we set the expectation at that time that those substantive changes will be made at an appropriate time once we've gathered like that user data that you're talking about. So I want to make sure that we're not sending mixed messages that hurry up and do it and let's make these changes based on user feedback now. So, but open to a conversation about that.
That's helpful. I want to make sure that we are not pushing this down the road further when we made a commitment to have a process to review this. If this is 2 to 3 years that we're going to wait to make any changes, I think people are going to look other places to build and not in Boise. And I think that would be a shame. I would hate for us to lose opportunities for housing because it's too complicated or too hard, or it's just not working within the planning system here in Boise. So I appreciate that we need something, but I would like to see a public outreach plan. We've asked for that. This is not a surprise. We asked for this a year later, and now it's more than a year later, and I'm still hearing like someday. So I want to be put on the record that this needs to be today. We've got people who are frustrated today, not tomorrow.
Yeah, I think with my comments, and I talk about it more later, both in this slide and another one, is like creating a culture of continuous improvement. I think it would be, I don't think it would make sense for us to touch our zoning code 6 times a year. But there might be 6 different requests this year on the things that we might like to see changed in it. So I think putting that culture of continuous improvement towards a plan that would say, hey, at least annually or every 2 years, we're going to touch this based on user feedback, based on applications that we're seeing. Like having that culture of continuous improvement around it will allow us to meet expectations of the public and applicants, like when it comes to that. But I don't want to. I worry if we wait for that first round of data and public feedback that the commitment that we made to revisit within a year will not be met. And
President Nash, I'm just waiting
I'm
for
going to
something.
jump in here. I believe Sean is scheduled to come. Is it next week or the week after with an update on many of these things and the timing, as he provided to council in December that he would be back at the beginning of the year, that goes into what they believe from a staffing perspective they can do on all of these.
okay, great.
Madam Mayor, Council President, just one other comment on the public feedback. I do believe we are getting really good feedback. In fact, Southeast Neighborhood Association provided a letter this past week to us. I think there are a limited number of folks that maybe understand the changes because we haven't had that many projects this year. And so maybe a more open public feedback would just be kind of relitigating maybe that the entire zoning code as a whole. And I think we want to be more specific to what we're actually seeing. And so I would just say publicly, especially neighborhood associations that are a little bit more in the game and maybe have a lot more experience. If there are things, just continue to provide that feedback. And, in our inboxes are always open, essentially.
Madam Mayor, I know that we need to move on this one. I just want to go back to, I think, what the intention of council was when we passed our zoning code. We knew that it wasn't ever going to be perfect, nor should it ever be, because it should evolve and change over time. But our goal should always be to make it more perfect. The intention, I think, of revisiting it in December was not so that council members could come back with ideas to change it even more. I think the idea was for staff to continue to receive feedback from the public, from the stakeholder groups who had been involved, and from our different types of developers, to see if there was any gaps or things that we weren't noticing, and to see if our incentives were working or not working, and to see if there was any adjustments that needed to be made there. And so I think, and I understand that, we had said that we wanted to do it in December. We also didn't anticipate there being a change in our PDS director at the time. So it's understandable that that got pushed a little bit later. I still think what we need to hear from is our staff, the feedback that they've been getting from the community, who those community members are, and any sort of recommendations that they have for council. I would caution council from coming up with our own recommendations, because that's really us just advocating for things that maybe we want to see. But this is really designed to be feedback that we've heard from our stakeholders into the community, staff who's figured out a way to incorporate that feedback and strengthen or make slight changes to the document, and for us to see those and have the opportunity to formally approve those types of changes. I think that was what the intention was with revisiting it, was to make sure that if we were seeing problems, we were addressing them then. And that is something that I believe that we do need to do, and we do need to hear that from staff, and we do need to hear the stakeholders that they've been talking to get that information.
Councilmember Stead, design review.
Thank you, Council President. It's fine. I think it's been covered, and I look forward to more information to come from PDS staff in the coming weeks.
Okay, thank you. Area of impact. Some of you may know the legislature has required us to revisit that this year, related to annexation decisions. The post-Murillo, the mayor invited Councilmember Stead and I to a meeting with department heads related to South Boise. So we had the Murillo decision, but we really wanted to grapple with how that annexation was going to impact the rest of South Boise and conversations around that. Very impressed by that meeting. And it was really helpful to hear from PDS and Parks and Fire and Airport, especially, about how they're thinking about South Boise. I see that as an important part of the conversation. I think there are also other things we need to consider as we talk about area of impact. Specifically, foothills, we mentioned it earlier today, but the city has a very strong track record of informal land use development patterns in the foothills, and we want to continue that culture. So we would like council to better understand what we've done, how we've approached the foothills, and what we'd like to do going forward. And we think that's an important conversation prior to area of impact. Additionally, South Boise, better understanding the vision for the airport so that we can protect land for the development of third and fourth runway, both to the south of the airport, but also to the east, where potential developments in the county are being considered. We also want to better understand how different proposals like Lake Hazel Extension, the industrial development in South Boise, how those work together to influence our overall planning strategy in that part of town. Also understanding potential developments that are being considered in Southeast Boise. How do we mitigate impacts that might come related to that, and understanding what pressures that might put on both of our infrastructure and services. Even if that is not part of the city, those impacts will still exist, especially as it relates to the airport. When it comes to Southwest Boise, I think it should probably come as no surprise based on the motion in Murio that there's a majority of council that is interested in annexing the Mergordio site for future park development. I think the rationale there is that previously the city has not considered this because a lack of a tax base to support the development there. But if we are going to have impact fees being collected specifically for the development of that park, that I think the opportunity has come up for us to really seriously consider annexing that property that we've owned for some time. I do want to acknowledge that the developments of parks, there's owning a park and greening up a park, and those are two very different things. And even if we were able to, I think in the impact fees that could be developed from Murio, I think we're in the ballpark of $5 million. $5 million does not get you very far in a park. So I just want to set public expectations that I think council is very understanding of piecemeal approaches to park development. We're going to talk a little bit about that in a second when it comes to places like Spalding Ranch, where the city has done a very effective job at activating space prior to it being all the way greened up. And we want to continue to be creative to make sure that these folks can see the progress that we're demonstrating across the city. Additionally, the things that we need to take under consideration that we'd like to talk more about: 10 Mile Creek planning area south of Murio Farms. That is something that we've previously requested in our area of impact, but we would want to have a conversation with PDS on the rationale for why that was included in the past and making sure that it's still consistent with our goals around that. Urban renewal. Oh, actually, asbestos abatement. That's not on my list, but Councilmember Morales, did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, Council President, thank you. It's been highlighted recently across a number of entities. We have a concerning gap in requirements and enforcement of public safety standards when it comes to the renovation or demolition of older residential structures that may contain hazardous materials like asbestos, lead. Given the limited regulatory controls unique to the state of Idaho, I'd like to ask staff to consider updates to our permitting process that would ensure surveying for possible risks in properties of concern and requirements for the proper treatment and removal of hazardous materials in single-family residents. That's kind of the gap there, along with enforcement mechanisms to ensure compliance. This is a public safety and health issue of concern to neighbors near properties like this, as well as to our inspectors that frequent these during renovation or demolition projects. And as our city ages, we'll have more properties deteriorate and need to be renovated or demolished, and that will benefit from being on top of any potential hazardous conditions and their mitigation.
Thank you for that. Urban renewal, Councilmember Stead, along with the mayor's office, we met with CCDC recently, and it was a very enlightening meeting. I think it gave us a better handle on when urban renewal is and isn't appropriate. I know we've had conversations previously about consideration of urban renewal districts in places like Orchard on the Central Bench. I came away from that meeting very educated on when this is and isn't appropriate. And I think it's a great tool when it's right, and when it's not, it doesn't make a lot of sense at all. And we're looking forward to learning more about opportunities for urban renewal across the city, and would welcome that conversation with CCDC. And I would encourage council members to really dig into the details and the finances and ask tough questions about when this makes sense and what we can really accomplish with it. I came away from the meeting that this really makes sense when we have developers in the community that are really ready to develop an area so that we can build revenue from the increased property value. But if we don't have that, it can be a big swing and a miss in certain places. So we want to be thoughtful about those things as we consider urban renewal across the city.
Madam President,
Yeah.
Sorry, Madam Mayor,
I've been called
Council President. I just wanted to add to that really quickly because I don't think there's a different, more appropriate place to include it. But I just wanted to lend my support and encouragement of the work that's going on in the Shoreline District to activate a more harmonious neighborhood between the different constituent groups there and different residents. So looking forward to seeing, I know that the innovation teams have been working on some really good recommendations, and looking forward to supporting those this year as they come forward.
All right, Councilmember Stead, it's you again. Economic Relief Fund.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor and Council President. Given that my district, District 5, includes the downtown core, as well as several of our small business commercial districts, Bound Crossing, Hyde Park, et cetera, I want to be sure that we're as thoughtful as we can in our construction patterns and requirements. And part of that is partnering with our sister agencies, as I know our staff does, to ensure that we're limiting the number of times that these businesses are experiencing closures in front of their businesses and the length of time that they're seeing those closures, and that as we're choosing to hinder access to their businesses. I'd like to see the city look into developing an economic relief fund for small businesses that are directly impacted by the city's road or development construction priorities, to alleviate some of the pressure that they might feel around those decisions that are completely outside of their control.
Thank you, Councilmember Stead. Street lighting needs. Councilmember Morales, Councilmember Halliburton.
Yeah, Council President, we've been kind of made aware of some parts of Boise where our streets don't shine brighter than as bright as others, and that can or likely has been of danger to our neighbors. And so we'd like Public Works to identify which streets those are that are perhaps inadequate by current standards, and determine what a multi-year funding plan would look like to be able to allow us to increase that lighting infrastructure where it's needed, along with that prioritized plan. So, perhaps there are tools that can help us identify which of these areas present more danger, are, should be advanced maybe in a timeline to be able to ensure that our team has the funding they need to be able to increase that. I know Council Member Halliburton is equally interested in this issue, so I definitely pass the mic off to him for additional comment thoughts.
Yeah, nothing really to add there. You did a great job there, Councilmember Morales, and you'll hear more about this when our traffic fatality review task force comes back to council here in the coming months.
Councilmember Morales, I'm sorry if I missed it. Did you give specific figures on how much streetlights cost and how many a year we have in the budget currently?
I believe the number that was reported secondary source from staff was that it was about 10 grand a light, if I recall correctly. And
like
and yeah, we don't really have maybe. Well, I would say that's part of the problem, is probably not understanding, and Public Works may already have this data, but not understanding how many we would need or what areas are in need. And so I think that's what's mostly of interest, is identifying what is our need, and then what would that, how far would we need to stretch that need? How much could we cover initially to try to specifically higher danger areas to get those taken care of. But I think kind of understanding that overall picture is important, and understanding what we can then do to advocate for that as a budget priority.
Councilmember Halliburton, promote community involvement in the climate action plan.
Yeah, I'll be quick on here too. I think that we know that we've got an incredible climate action plan here for the city. And the mayor's office is doing a great job right now at trying to figure out how we can get the community more involved in that process. And I think it'll be important for council members in our own districts and our own areas to make sure that we're leveraging our impact to help with CE and the mayor's office in getting more people involved in our climate action plan.
Madam Mayor, Council President Nash, I just wanted to step back and talk about the lighting issue as well. We've had a town hall meeting with Boise Police Department, and they also recognize that lighting is one of the major deterrents for crime in areas. And I think we might consider, along with looking at where we need those lights, and I know there's a lot of areas in town that do, is that might make this part of a public campaign for people to turn on their lights that they do have on their homes, and how they can help be a partner to help light up our streets and hopefully prevent some crime as well. So as part of this, not only with Public Works, I'd like to see if we could also meet with BPD and see what they can do from a public outreach campaign.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, I think it's back to you, Councilmember Corliss, for water supply monitoring. I know this has been something that you've repeatedly talked to me about, not necessarily something I have a great deal of expertise in, but certainly an issue that's in your district has been problematic.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Mayor, Council President Nash. Thank you. I'm no water expert also, but I did want to highlight the fact that I think this is not just an area in West Boise or Southwest, it's an area for all of Boise, and the city's been actively working on this and has taken some great measures to help increase our water supply. I think one of the things I think about is there was a report done that looked at well monitoring and did a forecast out on where they think will be concerns in the future. A lot of it was within the area they looked at was West and Southwest Boise. I think I'd like to see if we can take a look as a city, how do we become more proactive in monitoring water supply through wells that the city owns or at public parks, or maybe even with private residents, so that we could quickly identify if there is an alarming need to have to do something sooner than later, that we are kind of on the forefront. I know there's a lot of organizations, DEQ, Department of Water Resources, that monitor wells, and I just want to make sure either if we're not monitoring it, that we're getting really good access to that and understanding that information. Thank you.
All right, library. City, this council invested in a facility strategic plan. We hired a contractor for that last year. We expect that report this year. It would be our expectation that those investments that we made in that plan, that we take some action related to that. So adopting recommendations that are made in consultation with that contractor, and recommendations made by the library board, which has the statutory authority to make those facilities recommendations, but making sure that our capital plan is supporting those recommendations. So Councilmember Halliburton, did you have anything you wanted to add there?
Just say any movement that we make in this area is more complicated because of ballot initiatives from several years ago. And so the planning process is challenging. It is complicated, but I think if we can figure out what it is that we want to do, and it's going to take years for plan, we can begin working on that way. Working it on a way that's both legal, functional for the public, and functional for council. But I really do look forward to having a recommendation made by the library on where they think that they need to grow and how they think they need to do it, and how city council can support in that effort.
Yeah, I think 2 years ago in the budget, we extended the life of the downtown library. And I think that's bought us time to come up with a capital plan that to deal with these facilities plans. So we look forward to hearing those proposals and working with the mayor's office on how to meet the library's needs. Additionally, I've been the quasi liaison to the library this last year, and attending those meetings. A lot of talk about how people use the library is changing. We had those same conversations when we had the joint library meeting with the board, but exploring their needs related to the digital collection so that we can make sure that folks have access to the resources that they want at the library. So we would be supportive of budget considerations related to that. Arts, history, and culture. Councilmember Willits, the semi-quincentennial. Let's talk about it.
I am very impressed that you said that so fluently.
Practiced all morning.
I'm so impressed. I'm so impressed. As one of my council assignments, I get to serve on arts and history, and it is, I think, the best assignment out there. And we are gearing up for America's 250th anniversary, which will technically happen next year, but most of the celebration will begin in July. And I just want to make sure that folks recognize that we can really lead as a capital city in Idaho about what that looks like. There's going to be celebrations happening all across the country, and I want to ensure that ours in Boise is just as spectacular.
A number of council members reached out about staffing for art preservation, making sure that we have capacity to preserve public art projects. I know that's been a concern with particular projects that have come up, and also a consideration in new art projects that have been proposed. So we want to make sure that we are comfortably staffed there. Additionally, one item I left off the last slide is related to special events. So Councilmember Stead, you want to talk about some of the things you've learned over the last couple of months as we've dealt with the liquor ordinance?
Yeah, thank you, Council President and Madam Mayor. I just want to, one of my priorities this year is to work with staff in evaluating our special event permitting process. I've heard from a lot of event holders, big and small, that there's a lot of fees and costs associated with it that have continued to increase year over year, and the demands of them haven't continued to increase. I would love to just evaluate the process holistically to be sure that we're being competitive with our neighboring cities and also with like cities across the country in what we're requiring of those events, especially those that have kind of a proven track record of being responsible stewards of the events that have proven that to us. But anyway, so that didn't make it on the presentation, but that was that last bullet point there.
It was in our hearts. Parks and Rec, pools. We made great progress there. We want to cross the finish line. We're grateful for the support from the mayor on these efforts. There's also interest in not only helping these pools get built, but also dealing with the former site of the South Pool and getting community feedback on that. Additionally, last year in our council priorities proposal, I think I had everybody come with their top 5 favorite parks that they wanted to see improved or developed. I think it's very clear to us that development impact fees are not enough to meet the public demand for our parks to be developed quickly, whether it's Alta Harris, Spalding Ranch, different pathways projects we have. We are supportive of collaborative efforts with the mayor to find funding sources to make sure that these get brought online more quickly. Park acquisitions, we remain supportive of the mayor's effort related to 10-minute walk to a park. I'm always excited every time we get called into an executive session to consider a new park acquisition. And we want to continue to keep our foot on the gas pedal as it relates to that, while also once again acknowledging to the public that acquiring a park and greening up a park are two very different things. I think we are demonstrating great progress on these types of things. Spalding Ranch is a great example of the pumpkin patch that we've done there twice annually now. I met with the neighborhood association. The mayor and I were at what is the jazz up, or what's the Energize Our Neighborhoods meeting? And we were talking about the neighborhood association is already working with Parks and Rec on how to make events like that even better. We've got a road in at Spalding Ranch, and we have places that we can plant crops, and we can bring people on there to harvest pumpkins, even though the whole site isn't greened up yet. But even that project is a great example. I think we got a bid recently to install pathways interior on the park. That was, I think, upwards of $2 million. It's very expensive to green up and develop these parks. So we're looking forward to opportunities to work with the mayor on identifying how we can do that more quickly. Councilmember Halliburton, do you want to speak to skate, bike, and roll?
I want to talk more about jazzing up our neighborhoods, which I think
I'm an hour and a half into this.
Forever
and
call that.
Yeah.
It's been really fun to watch the mayor skateboard at different parks around town over the last couple of years. I can tell there's a desire there to want to learn how to do it a little bit more. We've got a lot of different neighborhoods who I think are discovering that they have the opportunity to use some of their Energize or Jazz Up funds to help us actually build some of these skate spots, little skate parks like we see over at our by our Ivy Wide Pool and some other parts around town. We also have some great regional skate parks in different parts and a really great partner, the Boise Skateboard Association. And so one of the things that I'd like to do is work with the Mayor's Office, Parks and Rec, and the Boise Skateboard Association to actually develop a little bit of a longer plan that helps us identify what are potential areas for parks, where would be a good spot for a neighborhood to use some of their energized funds if they're interested, where would be a good location for regional parks, so that we're building them in a little bit more of a strategic way. And then as we're looking at new park sites or old park sites, or investing more funds, we're exploring those opportunities simultaneously. And so I think it's a really great, cheap, and easy way to make sure that we're continuing to put these different kinds of parks, from small ones to medium-sized ones to regional ones, in the parts of town that needs them.
Thank you. Additionally, specific parks that came up, council member priorities. I believe Liberty Park bathroom is programmed with development impact fees. Councilmember Corliss, you would want to briefly speak to that?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, President Nash, thank you for this opportunity. I think, we look at some of these parks, like Liberty Park is not a lot of opportunities to get impact fees, or it's pretty developed around there. So I guess I would say limited opportunity. But Parks and Recs in the city have taken another approach to look at grant opportunities also to help build out and replace older equipment, new equipment, and to fund a bathroom. So I appreciate the city going out there and taking a look at alternative opportunities to replace equipment, but also to fund a bathroom. I mean, we saw in today's consent agenda resolution to work with the South Boise Little League, who plays out there, and all those little kids, they need a place to go to the bathroom. So this is a great opportunity to put this as a priority in an area of town that's pretty developed already. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Stead, do you have anything on Alta Harris you want to add?
Thank you, Council President and Madam Mayor. Yeah, I mean, this is a park that is long in the making for these neighbors out there. I think probably some folks bought their homes thinking their kids would play there, and now those kids are in college. but I know that there's some funding set aside to break ground on that this summer for at least a phase one through the green up process, maybe a playground, depending on how we can use the money. But I wanted to just continue to support that and make sure that we stay on track with that. And the staff's doing a great job leading that project, and look forward to lending support.
Okay, thank you. Pathways. Council remains committed to pathways. I think what I'd like to propose to council this year is we do something similar to what we did last year, with rolling some of our funds and working with the mayor to identify additional funds. I would like to do this on a multi-year basis till we get up to a threshold that we like, whether that's we're doing $200,000 a year until we get to $1 million in pathways investments, while also exploring other revenue options like grants, but giving the pathways team the ability to do that. But I expect another budget proposal this year from me at a later time related to this. We have some individual pathways Councilmember Corliss identified as priority pathways, and we would encourage staff to take a look at that and meet with individual council members about those particular needs.
Madam Mayor, really quickly on that one, in order for us to get this done, council members are going to have to be active in that plan. And that means active in their own neighborhoods and trying to build support for these. One of the challenges that we have is that sometimes we actually have funding, but we actually need the neighborhoods, the neighborhood associations, and the people who live there to be on board. All of our council members have town halls scheduled this year, or meetings with neighborhood associations. That is a great opportunity to make sure that we're talking about pathways and continuing to push those forward, because we need that public support and we need that grassroots support in order to get these things done, in addition to the funding and the other strategies that Council President Nash has been talking about.
Okay. Transportation. I think this is our last. There we go. And maybe delete that question slide. Safe Streets Vision Zero. Councilmember Halliburton, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah. Most of this stuff, I think we can move to a future meeting. We are going to have a presentation, a review of everything that happened in 2024. And this is something that we want to have happen on an annual basis, where we're coming back with a detailed report of what we've reviewed, all of our statistics, and what sort of recommendations we have going forward. And so I believe that we will be scheduling that sometime in February or March for that report back from our team. Our team is expanded. We have some folks from PDS coming into the meeting now, which is great because we need to make sure that we've got decision makers in the room who can actually help us advise on some different things. We have our alcohol compliance officer, folks from BPD, folks from ACHD. And it's really important that as the stuff that we're reviewing and seeing, that we're communicating that back with both the public, back with all the different agency partners that are within there, and then certainly back with city council. So you should see those recommendations coming up soon as that committee continues to meet and strengthen as we go forward in this year.
The only thing on this slide that I wanted to briefly touch on was modern zoning code. Recently sat down with an architect to talk about like some of my goals and intentions and what I felt like the cities were related to the modern zoning code. And we just looked at a couple different properties to talk about what was possible there. And I was surprised at the regulatory barriers that either weren't related to zoning or were other agencies or other, whether it be trash collection, ACHD, fire, that impacted our ability to like meet the goals of the modern zoning code. So I think council is going to be doing more work this year to try to better understand how the modern zoning code interacts with other regulations so that the next time we have an ACHD meeting, we can lean on them harder to adopt policies that are more in line with what we're expecting out of our modern zoning code. So anything else, council members, you'd like to add that did not cover? Okay. Madam Mayor, I'd move that we go into executive session. Let me come up there and get my motion.
Madam Mayor, pursuant to Idaho Code Section 74-2061F, I move to enter executive session to communicate with legal counsel to discuss pending litigation or imminent litigation.
Second.
Clark. Nash.
Yes.
Stead.
Yes.
Willett. Yes. Corliss.
Yes.
Halliburton.
Yes.
Rouse.
Yeah.
All in favor, motion carries.